Not many video games these days provide a way for us gamers to vent our frustrations by acting out our deepest, darkest desires. Sure, you could go hijack a car in Grand Theft Auto, use it to run over innocent NPCs, or you could go stab, slash, and squash demons from Mars with absolute vigor in Doom, but none of these games allow you to seriously slaughter NPCs in the manner of the latter with the freedom of the former. It's already being spoiled by the title of this video, so let me introduce you to the unhinged open world of Prototype. On second thought, you probably know a lot about Prototype since you clicked on this video. I'm not going to discuss whether the first Prototype game or its sequel was the better experience, nor am I going to go super in depth about the narratives of each game. There are plenty of great videos already that discuss things like that. One thing I'll tell you right away is that I replayed both Prototype 1 and 2 many times over. I can recall most sounds, moments, and missions in the game at this point. The games have become a core memory for me that I'll cherish for the rest of my life, because I still remember the day when I was supposed to take care of my grandfather when the adults were out of the house, and I played Prototype 2 on my old raggedy laptop while I watched him sleep. With this small part of my biography done, I proudly present to you why the Prototype games were absolutely unhinged. It's quite obvious that the not-so-secret branch of the United States military in the Prototype universe, Blackwatch Special Forces, designated under the 1st Virological Warfare Command, are a representation of the horrible atrocities committed by the real human beings and government entities that participated in real biological warfare and experiments. Also, the regular United States military soldiers in the game literally call Blackwatch personnel f***ing Nazis. Yeah, we've got another case of the Galactic Empire, boys, except the soldiers in the Prototype games have a twist to them. Rather than them just being the typical obedient and evil grunt, the things they do and the things they say have a similarity to soldiers you might see in your typical Hollywood movie. There are great movies about war and soldiers, yes, but I'm talking about soldiers that drop F-bombs like they're still in high school, and soldiers that have a jolly old time turning innocent people into red mist. If you consider how the protagonists, quote-unquote, of the two Prototype games, Alex Mercer and James Heller, speak, they do so in completely different manners. Minor spoilers here, so go play both games first if you want to experience it for yourself. So Alex was a scientist working for the biotech company Gentek as the head researcher of the Blacklight project. Think of Gentek as sort of a defense contractor for Blackwatch. As always, when their dirty little secrets started to surface, Blackwatch started disappearing anybody connected to Blacklight, and as we see in the first Prototype game, Alex, in his arrogant last moments before getting gunned down by Blackwatch agents, smashed a glass vial of the Blacklight virus in Penn Station, New York. The real Alex had died. The Alex we play as in the entirety of the game is the virus itself that has taken the form of Alex. According to the official biography of Alex Mercer, his personality traits were distant, predatory, super intelligent, terrifying, vengeful, blank, and searching. In the same way that the real Alex would have acted and spoken, the reanimated Alex acts and speaks like someone with such traits. Now, I said all of that to show contrast against James Heller, the prototype of the sequel. By the way, Alex and James are technically known as prototypes. Now, James, after believing that he had lost his wife and daughter to the second outbreak of the Blacklight virus in New York 2 years after the first game, he became extremely angry. He had become part doomer and part rager. He was also a certified United States Marine, so he's probably had his fair share of strong language in the early days of his profession. So yeah, he drops F-bombs all the time, and I might be the only one who thinks this, but some of his dialogue seems to be inspired by Samuel L. Jackson as MF bombs.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
James is also a goddamn boomer who doesn't know how to use computers.
Okay, press the alternate key. ALT alternate.
Alt. There's no alt. I got a squiggly line key. I got a key with a triangle on it. What the kind of keyboard is this anyway?
He's just the tip of the iceberg though. The United States Marines and the Blackwatch forces in the first game were tame compared to their counterparts in the sequel. It's as if they're in a sitcom or something in Prototype 2.
You know, some infected chicks are still pretty hot if you pop a bag over their heads.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Of course, James with his boundless sense of humor will sometimes play along.
Shit, dude. Have you been working out? I eat a lot of protein. So long, fuckers.
Some might find this cringe, which is perfectly understandable, but the comedic relief that this brings to the table was just perfect in the desperate and gory world of Prototype. It is only in Prototype that you can be as brutal as the Doomslayer from Doom, but in the third-person perspective. Yes, the Slayer only slays demons that have invaded Earth, but Alex and James will slay anybody or anything of your choosing. The claws of the first ability that you obtain in both games, to summarize them in one sentence, is like becoming overpowered Wolverine. It's arguably the least utilized ability in both games though, especially by the time you're at the end of either campaign, but boy does it open the doors right away for you to cause utter destruction among the infected and innocent NPCs all the same. Just imagine one day you're on a nice evening stroll with your fiance by the waterside, and all of a sudden an emo guy in a hoodie mutates claws right in front of you, who then proceeds to slice the love of your life in half by the waist. Doom Guy approves of this fatality move. I absolutely love the fact that your choice of ability and the way you attack using said ability affects how your fiance gets sliced in half. You got the waist cut, the shoulder cut, and my favorite, the half bird for only $5.99 cut. The only thing I wished I could also do in the game is to slice somebody in half by the front and back as opposed to the left and right. I'm probably sounding like a psychopath right now. My next favorite ability that is exclusive to the first prototype game is the muscle mass ability. It's not incorrect to assume that any biological organism that Alex and James consume adds mass to them in the physical sense. That's why they can create claws and other grotesque extensions of themselves seemingly out of nowhere. So why not create more muscle, right? Steroid manufacturers hate this one trick. So what's so unhinged about this ability? Well, red mist. Alex can literally punch NPCs into red mist with his homemade steroid. Forget the fact that you can chuck expensive air conditioning units faster and further away. It's all about watching some innocent civilians' ribcage roll across the street like tumbleweed in a western. Doom Guy approves once again. Shout out to the Hammer Fist, Blade, Whip Fist abilities for bringing mass destruction to government property and crowds of people that definitely didn't deserve to die. The Devastator abilities in both games are also great at absolutely destroying your surroundings. But it's the small and personal attacks that I love about the prototype games. Exclusive to prototype 2 are the tendrils. James got these nasty looking arms and fingers after he consumes a Hydra or a Copperhead, which is what Hydras were called in prototype 1. Look, I'm not judging or anything, but James might have a bondage king.
What?
I mean, his tendrils literally tear apart objects and organisms with said tendrils that attach onto surfaces. If getting sliced in half could be considered painless and merciful, then James' tendrils quartering you would be considered unnecessary torture, or oddly arousing depending on who you ask.
I don't know, man. You've been seeming sus lately.
Hey, he brought this onto himself. In the introduction, I said that prototype games have the freedom of an open world like Grand Theft Auto, with the brutality of a modern Doom game. You hijack cars in GTA, hence the name, but you hijack tanks and helicopters in prototype. Yes, I know you can drive tanks and helicopters, even planes in GTA games, but like I said, GTA games don't have the brutality that Doom games have. For example, in prototype, you can get into a tank and drive it right over innocent people in their cars and taxis in the middle of New York City without anyone ever batting an eye. You could also just run over people straight up if you want. Not a single Marine or Black Watch soldier gives a damn. You could also have the bonus option of turning NPCs into red mist with the 50 cals. Tanks are slow and boring, but you know what's not slow and exciting? Choppers. Literally and figuratively. Look, I don't recommend you ever search up videos of people meeting their unfortunate endings from helicopter blades. Don't. Just don't. But hey, there's always a virtual alternative called Prototype, where you can fly your helicopter blades into crowds of people. It's absolutely crazy that the makers of the Prototype games considered this would happen at one point or another, and made sure the code allows for it to happen. If you thought GTA games were making kids violent, then Prototype games were making kids into psychopaths. Well, I'm obviously being sarcastic here. I don't actually think video games make people violent. In general, it's more nuanced than that. I discussed a little bit about that in episode 2 of Gaming Nostalgia when I talked about Warcraft. In a universe like Prototype, where sentient viruses can shapeshift into mere human beings and big but naked humanoids, it is paramount that the people designing these creatures express their artistry in a way that reinforces the brutality and unhinged nature of the game. It isn't your typical zombie apocalypse where the undead take over the streets in bloody clothes as they wail and moan. No, the infected creatures in Prototype games are truly unique. Let me give you an example that might be immediately obvious to you. Copperheads. They're called Hydras in the second game. Okay, just look at them. What comes to mind when you see one? Look, I was a teenager when I played Prototype, and I definitely thought that the Hydras kinda looked like... Maybe this is how Drake was inspired. The disgusting aspect of the Hydras is that their heads split open to reveal a mouth, and inside this mouth is a tendril where James probably got his tendril abilities from. The Hydras will use these tendrils to grab you or objects. The thought of seeing a Drake snake launch a tendril at you in order to devour your flesh and soul gives me the heebie-jeebies. Look, I'm half joking around with the Drake thing.
Don't lie to me, Walt. You sussy baka.
But you gotta realize why I never engage hydras in melee range. I don't want a Drake Snake launching its tendrils at me like how a frog launches his tongue at a fly. It's a shame that hydras only appear in missions, not in the open world in both prototype games. I swear, the creature designers of prototype were onto something. Just look at Elizabeth Green, who we fight in a big boss battle in the middle of Times Square, New York. Okay, I was gonna say that she looks like a flesh cockroach, but on second thought, she looks like another damn Drake Snake.
Stop it. Get some help.
The prototype games are rated mature, and I think they should stay that way for the better. Before I close this one, let's talk about the Hunters, or Brawlers, as they're called in Prototype 2. I'm sorry to say this, but the design of the Brawlers in the second game were not scary at all. The designers gave them a generic, scary face with big teeth. In huge contrast to Prototype 1, the Hunters in that game were absolutely terrifying. So terrifying, in fact, that I was scared to engage them, not only because they might kill me, but because they were literally faceless. Okay, maybe they're not that faceless, but just look at them. What on God's green earth is that? It looks like
chocolate starfish.
Do you remember the infected water towers in Prototype 1? The water towers that were incubators for these damn things? I despise them so much. Sometimes I would just fly around with a helicopter in free roam and blow up each and every one of them that I come across with an actual vendetta. While we're on the topic of creatures in Prototype games, let's not forget the Goliath from Prototype 2. If you've ever played the game to the end, you know what goes down when one of these bad boys shows up. I thought the Goliath boss fights were the coolest thing ever when I first played it long ago. After all this time, I didn't even touch on the aspect of prototype games that a lot of people share sentiments on. The Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction is a video game based on the comic superhero Hulk. It was released in 2005 after being developed by Radical Entertainment, the same studio that would eventually go on to make the prototype games. This game about the Hulk and prototype have a bunch of similarities. In fact, it's quite obvious that a lot of attack moves in prototype are directly inspired or ported directly from this game. I don't say this as a bad thing. No, it's actually brilliant. I've never played the Hulk game myself, but many people praise this game for being one of, if not the best, Hulk video game in existence, and I can see why. The power fantasy of elbow dropping onto tanks and chucking vehicles like Lego pieces as the Hulk share a striking resemblance to the power fantasy of elbow dropping into tanks and chucking AC units like Lego pieces as Alex Mercer or James Heller. But as the title of this video suggests, the sheer brutality of the prototype games is what made it enjoyable for me. Yes, slicing people in half with helicopter blades seems psychopathic, hence the title. If the makers of the prototype games didn't want me to do this exact thing, they would have censored it in some way, and that's why I still play the prototype games to this day. So many others like me desperately want a continuation, or at least a modern remake or remaster of the prototype franchise, because that's the kind of game that we all need right now. I didn't mention the stupid bugs that the old prototype games had in the reporting process. For example, they would crash on CPUs with more than 4 threads, and the camera movement and the sound engine is tied to the FPS of the game, and would glitch out if the game ran faster than 60 FPS, and so on. We hope this is all fixed one day when Activision, who still owns the property rights to the prototype franchise, decides to bring the game and its glorious universe back to life. Hell, Alex did it from just a radioactive puddle of meat. Prototype is unhinged, and it will always be to me. What's your favorite thing or memory about the prototype games? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Gaming Nostalgia, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers! If you enjoy this content, such as feeling nostalgic about video games and other things in general, consider liking and subscribing. This motivates me to create more content like this in the future. Thank you.